Hi everyone, welcome to Medicinal Note YouTube channel. Here we are going to see about cellular adaptation. As the cell encounters the stress, they undergo functional or structural adaptation to maintain the viability and homeostasis. If any cell undergoes stress, they adapt to the stress like structurally as well as functionally to maintain a viability and homeostasis to work properly, which is known as cellular adaptation. They are reversible changes of the cell like size, number, metabolic activity and function in response to change in environment. These are the factors which changes to structurally and functionally: size, number, metabolic activity and function response to the change in environment. Such adaptation makes several distinct forms. They are atrophy, hypertrophy, hyperplasia, metaplasia, dysplasia, anaplasia. Here we will see briefly about these all the types which about cellular adaptation. First, atrophy. Shrinkage of the size of the cell due to loss of cell substance. Shrinkage of the size of the cell. The cell size shrinks due to the loss of cell substance. This atrophy is divided into physiological and pathological. In physiological atrophy is a common in early development as well as later life. In early development in fetus and infant, in later life breast tissue after lactation, they undergo a partial reduction in size, which is the atrophy, and the uterus after parturition, after the delivery the uterus contracts, which is an atrophy. Pathological atrophy depends upon the cause. They are divided into, pathological atrophy is divided into generalized and localized. Generalized atrophy. Starvation atrophy, wasting of the skeletal muscle, which is known as starvation atrophy. This is due to malnutrition. In malnutrition, body uses the skeletal muscle as a source of energy. Due to malnutrition, there is no energy present in the body, so the body uses the skeletal muscles as a source of energy. So it causes atrophy of muscles. In chronic inflammatory disease and cancer, it causes muscle atrophy. And in chronic inflammatory diseases and cancer, it also causes muscular atrophy. Senile atrophy occurs in old age. Atrophy due to skeletal muscle and heart. This atrophy due to heart is known as brown atrophy. Endocrine atrophy, which is leads to atrophy of thyroid gland, adrenal cortex and gonad. In localized, these are the generalized one, and the localized atrophy are ischemic atrophy, slowly developing atrial occlusive disease, decrease in blood supply. Brain atrophy, atherosclerosis of cerebral artery causes brain atrophy. Disuse atrophy. This disuse atrophy is due to occurs in the mostly in bed rest patient, as well as the fracture of bone is immobilized by the plaster cast. In the fracture of bone, they are immobilized with a plaster cast. This disuse atrophy it occurs mostly in bed rest patient and the fracture person, and this results in atrophy of skeletal muscle. And in the fracture cases, due to disuse, it leads to osteoporosis. which means increase in bone resorption. Due to this, atrophy is caused. Second one, hypertrophy, increase in the size of the cell and consequently the size of the organ. Both increase in size of the cell as well as size of the organ takes place. This is due to increased synthesis of structural protein and organelles. This is due to the increased synthesis of structural protein which is present in the cell and the organelles. There are no new cells are formed. Due to the increase in size, we might think that there are new cells are formed, but there are no new cells are formed in the hypertrophy. Cells which are capable for dividing undergo hypertrophy and hyperplasia. The cells which are capable, generally in the body, the cells which are capable for dividing undergoes hypertrophy and hyperplasia. The non-dividing cell undergoes hypertrophy. In other organs, both hypertrophy and hyperplasia simultaneously occurs. Hypertrophy is due to, it is divided into physiological as well as pathological. In physiological, increased workload during exercise is the main cause of the physiological hypertrophy. In pathological, hypertrophy of myocardium, it is due to hypertension and aortic valve disease. Smooth muscle hypertrophy, obstruction of the outflow in hollow organs. Just like example, stomach, which is known as pyloric stenosis, intestine, Crohn's disease, bladder, prostatic hyperplasia. The third one we are going to see about hyperplasia. Hyperplasia is increase in the number of cells and increase in the size of the organ. And the hyperplasia does not always increase the size of an organ. Mostly this hyperplasia does not always increases the size of the organ. The increases in the number of cells. In hyperplasia, in the hypertrophy, there is no increase in number of cells. There are no new cells are formed. In hyperplasia, the increase in number of cells and increase so that there is an increase in the size of the organ. Hyperplasia, if the cell population is capable of, as I have already said, if the cell population is capable of dividing, hyperplasia occurs. Hyperplasia is also due to physiological and pathological. In physiological, hormonal hyperplasia, increase in the functional capacity. Example, hyperplasia of the breast tissue during pregnancy. During pregnancy, the breast size increases due to the functional capacity. Compensatory hyperplasia, increases the tissue mass after the damage or partial resection. Increase in the tissue mass after the, if there is a damage to any organ, it is partial or there is any partial resection, there is an increase in the tissue size. Example, regeneration of the liver cell after partial hypertectomy. After partial hypertectomy, there is a regeneration of the liver cell occurs. After some of the portion of the liver is cut down, there is a regeneration of the liver cells occurs. This is an example for compensatory hyperplasia. In pathological hyperplasia, excess hormones and growth factors are produced. Endometrial hyperplasia, disturbances in estrogen and progesterone balance causes endometrial hyperplasia. Metaplasia, it is a reversible change in which one cell type is replaced by the another cell type. It is a reversible change in which the one cell is replaced by the other cell. Adaptation of the cell that sensitive to a particular stress of a cell types is better able to withstand the adverse environment. Adaptation of the cell that is sensitive to a particular stress to a cell types is better able to withstand the adverse environment. Occurs in epithelium and connective tissue. If it occurs in epithelium, it is epithelium metaplasia. Transformation of simple columnar epithelium to stratified squamous epithelium. It is commonly occurs in the respiratory tract and it is responsible for chronic irritation. Connective tissue metaplasia, formation of cartilage bone or adipose tissue in the tissue that normally do not contain these elements. The connective tissue metaplasia is a formation of a cartilage bone or adipose tissue in the tissue that normally do not contain their element. Dysplasia, not a true cellular adaptation, a atypical hyperplasia, abnormal change in size, shape and organization of the mature cell, strongly associated with common neoplastic growth. Anaplasia is a neoplastic cancerous change takes place. Here, this is a neoplastic and cancerous changes takes place in anaplasia. Thank you. For more videos, please do subscribe, like and share. If there is any doubt in this video or if you want any other video, please do comment in the comment box. Thank you.